Hello and welcome to Insight Indonesia, brought to you by the Jakarta Globe. I'm your host, Lin Neumann. Today we're talking with the Managing Director of the American Chamber of Commerce, better known as AmCham Indonesia. Andrew White is our guest, who is a recent returnee after a period of exile away from Indonesia. Not exactly exile. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you
and
very much.
I kind of somewhat belated welcome back to Indonesia, but it's only been a few months.
It's great to be back.
Yeah, you were here as an executive with Philip Morris Sampurna at one time. Philip Morris at one time, I know. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But when I think of AmCham, I think principally about an organization that helps to promote better investment relations between Indonesia and the United States. Have I got that more or less right?
It's more or less right. I mean, our role, our mission is to be the advocate for American business here in Indonesia.
And how would you say, what's the profile really of American business these days? The big ticket investors have been here a long time, a whole lot of them, but how does it look for the profile for American investors now?
Well, I think you have different sizes and different companies in terms of the sectors. So one, you have the companies that have been here for decades. They're here, they've been investing in a long time. What you have is a dynamic that's happening now where you have a number of investors who formerly weren't looking to come to Indonesia. But now with Indonesia moving up in investors' minds, a lot of companies, what I do a lot of times, day in and day out, is talk to companies that are for the first time looking to invest in Indonesia.
Well, I had a show not too long ago with Kit Bond on. It was bringing an investment team from St. Louis to take a look at investing in Indonesia, and it just struck me as this is really a sign of how far Indonesia has come. That St. Louis is, I mean, St. Louis has some big companies, but you don't think of individual cities coming to Indonesia to look at investment opportunities, but they are.
They are. I mean, if you look at St. Louis, we signed an MOU with the World Trade Center when they came out here. You have Boeing, you have Monsanto. They're big investors, and you had some small companies that are coming out. We had a delegation just a couple weeks ago from the Great Lakes, eight different states, small companies. But they have ideas, they have innovation, they're coming in, they're looking to put their money here.
Now, these smaller companies interest me a lot. What kind of things are they looking at?
I think, whether it's small, medium, or large, they're essentially looking for four things. First is skilled labor. That's the first requirement. Secondly, what they're looking at today is they're looking at the infrastructure. They're looking at power. They're looking at roads. They're looking at ports. They're also looking at regulatory issues, because when they put their money in here, they're looking for a long-term investment. So those are the essential ingredients.
So these are all areas that we talk about endlessly in Jakarta when we talk about business. What are some of the obstacles that are still there for the kind of certainty that at least American companies are looking for when they make big-ticket investments in Indonesia?
Well, I think if you look at the challenges, first is what they're looking for is nimble, quick firms, because oftentimes what a manufacturer or a company is looking for is they're looking for local Indonesian partners who can move quickly, who can establish the kind of outsourced manufacturing for them. The second thing they're looking at is when they set up a new business. How long is it going to take to set up that business? What process do they need to go through to set up that business? And again, then they look at the infrastructure, the power, the hookups, how long it's going to take to get their product to the consumer or the product to the port for export.
Now, a lot of what you're talking about in there fits the profile of fast-moving consumer goods, manufacturing those here, perhaps exporting them, perhaps selling them into the domestic market. This tends to be an area where government regulation is somewhat minimal. You can get in, you can get up, and you can get running pretty quickly, from what I understand. It's a good sector, and the returns are pretty fast. So you're looking at something that, as you said, is nimble, and I think unless I'm wrong, there seem to be a lot of partners out there ready to do this kind of thing.
There are a lot of switched-on partners. There's no doubt about that.
But then the complaints we hear, of course, are a lot of them focused on mining, and I know that AmCham and the Indonesian Mining Association have addressed this. Where do we stand from AmCham's point of view on mining and the investment climate for mining here?
Well, first you have to look at Indonesia from a mineral resource potential. And there's no question in anyone's mind that Indonesia sits at the top of the list in that regard. In fact, there's an institute in Canada. Every year it polls mining companies, 300 mining companies, and it looks around 90 countries around the world. Indonesia scores at the very top of the list, right in the top 10.
For potential.
For potential. But what they also look at is they look at the regulatory environment, they look at the enforcement of contracts and other factors. And when you add that all up, where Indonesia begins to fall is at the very lowest at the list. So the potential is here, but the challenge is today, in terms of many of these companies, they're investing for the long haul, and the payback doesn't come until decades out. So they want that to be sure that when they put that investment in here, when the payback comes down the road, that they're able to make the profit for that.
We're almost out of time for this segment, but do you feel like you're getting a decent dialogue going on these issues?
I think we're trying to at this point, and I think there's, on the Indonesian government's point of view, there's a willingness to. So let's say we're cautiously or vigilantly optimistic at this point in time on those issues. But it is about dialogue, and I think that's the key. Transparency in terms of how decisions are made, bring the stakeholders to the table, that's the way forward.
My producer will be cautiously optimistic if I take a break here and we come back and talk more about the investment climate in Indonesia and some of the exciting things that AmCham is up to. You're watching Insight Indonesia, brought to you by the Jakarta Globe. Stay with us.